Hey guys, it's Matteo here with a disclaimer. Disclaimer, no hate towards Tom Holland, the Marvel Universe, the movie, anything. It is not okay. It is not condoned by us. We do not support it. Please do not go send hate or anything towards any of these people. Secondly, I would like to say that a lot of this are jokes and lightheartedness, and there are certain things that cannot be taken seriously, and we keep it lighthearted to get through and to have it, some comedic relief. So there are a lot of jokes in this. You cannot take all of it seriously. The link down below is not a valid source of science. Please do not take it as one. It is also part of a joke. And everything stated in this video is opinion based off our experiences with DID and our experiences with the life that we have because of DID, and based off research that we have done. So, yeah, that is the disclaimer. Enjoy the podcast. Okay, welcome back to another episode of probably going until midnight of Waffles. That's how I'm starting this time.
Yeah, well, hopefully, I have notes this time, and,
Okay.
hopefully we won't be rambling.
Yeah, I have
but
mental notes, so.
sometime, somewhere in our last episode, or at least the last episode I was in, by the way, Dahlia Monstre, back at it again.
Welcome back.
But somewhere in that episode, if you go searching for it, I kind of offhandedly referenced the Spider-Man movie.
Yep.
And then you texted me today and you're like, yeah, I went to go see it. I have thoughts.
Basically how it went down, yeah. And just
is this Matteo, by the way, just to clarify?
Yeah, I was just about to introduce myself. So you are Dahlia, I am Matteo. We are both the hosts of our system and the hosts of this episode. So yeah.
Yeah,
I watched it and I was like, this would be a fun topic.
It's really funny because after I went to go see it, I was like, I saw it the day it came out, and it was by complete accident. Yeah, so I went to my movie theater, just a little backstory, with my sister. I had saw the most recent Ghostbusters. It was a Ghostbusters reboot where it's the granddaughter of one of the OG Ghostbusters, and it's about her and her brother. And it's a really fun movie. I had a good time, and my sister was kind of busy when I went to go see it, so I said, hey, for Christmas I'll pay for tickets and popcorn and everything, and we can go see it again. And my theater, we went there, we checked the website, it was gonna play. They had shut down all of the movies because Spider-Man can't come out on that day, and they're people are only gonna want to see Spider-Man. So it's Spider-Man every 15 minutes in every single theater. And I turned to my sister and I said, do you want to see Spider-Man or do you just want to go home? And she's like, I drove all the way over here, which, she was being a bit of a baby. It's not that far from my house, but we're like, yeah, we're going to go see this movie. And, there are parts of it that were fun. And then there were parts of it that made me really miserable.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was sitting there and I was like, for a brief moment when the dude was talking, I was like, oh, I have daily life experiences like that. And I was like, Oh shit, I have daily life experiences like that.
By the way, bad guy.
Norman? Is that his name?
Yeah, Norman Osborn, I believe the character's name is.
Yeah.
And, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Norman Osborn tends to either be the son not the son, the best friend of Peter Parker or the father of the best friend of Peter Parker, depending on which version of it
Oh,
is.
okay. Okay. I did not read
And
that part. I was just reading about his scientific career.
really, okay. He's like usually like the mayor, I think, something like that.
Oh.
I don't know. It's been a while since like I've engaged with Spider-Man content that wasn't like the movies. But I really liked
Yeah.
Spider-Man as a kid. I watched like every like 5 years there's like a new Spider-Man cartoon. And
Sounds
like
about right.
he would like they would be available and I would watch it because I have nothing better to do. And there's some that I liked and then some that I thought were really boring.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel that.
but yeah, so like, and the funny thing was, after I saw this movie, the reception from like general fans was like really positive, and it made me feel like just like really weird because I was just like, wow, that movie made me really uncomfortable, but it looks like everyone else liked it.
Yeah, I will say there was like I started getting antsy about it. I mean, overall, I liked the movie. Like I think it was good, but
Okay.
it just the tropes in it, it makes me wonder what makes people feel the need to relate mental health experiences to villainancy or villaincy.
I do have like a theory.
Oh,
And
okay.
this is going to be, and this is just because, well, I've always like had a really fascination with like, um, Singlet's like weird obsession with us when it comes to media. So like I started
Yeah.
looking into it, and you know how like you're 5, right? Okay, you're 5 now, Matteo. You're 5 years old, and you're
Okay.
watching a cartoon, and there's this guy, and he's evil. He's so evil, right?
Yeah.
He's like the biggest bad guy ever. And then like the hero will say like you're trying to like destroy the world, and he's like, yeah, because I'm evil. And like I always wondered, because it was one of the things that I first noticed when I was a kid that was like rational thinking when it came to like media. It's like, why do people want to destroy the world? Like they're like
Yeah.
they like live on the world. They would
Yeah.
die if they destroyed it. But like they don't need a rationalization because it's just like a kid's like show for like really young kids, not even like a kid show, but like for really young people, and they're just trying to show very basic good guys, bad guys, so children can like understand, oh, that's the bad guy. They want to destroy the
Mhm.
world. That's like what bad guys do.
Yeah.
And then like the good guy would be like, hey, I'm the good guy. I want to save the world. Like it's very simplified so children can understand it, right?
Yeah.
I think that like when you get older, you have more like, well, why are they evil, right? Why are
Yeah.
they evil? And so they'll say like, oh, this person wants to kill the main character because the main character's father killed their mom or something. Like there's more
Yeah.
rationality to it, right?
Yeah.
And then when like you're an adult, you have even more complex villains. You know what I mean? In fact, when you like get to like being an adult, there's no more good guys and bad guys anymore. There's just people, and they're good and they're bad depending on whatever situation they're in, right?
There's
Like a
people with
complex
problems and
character.
then there's people with no problems.
Yeah. And so I think it's like people want a complex villain, but they don't know how to do that. And so they know that there are people who are mentally ill who do things wrong because they're like sick and they're confused and they're not lucid. and they like, you know, whatever, X, Y, and Z. And so they're like, but they don't want to take the time to like understand mentally ill people.
Yeah.
So they think that it's the mental illness itself that makes people do bad things. And so it's an easy way to go back to the little kids. They're evil just because.
Yeah.
It's because they are, but like in a way where like people won't criticize them as much for it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's my theory. But that has more to do with just mental illness as like a general movie trope. I think what we're going to be talking about mostly is DID as a trope, right?
Yep, and also some schizophrenia in there.
Oh yeah, because I'm gonna be honest. Norman wasn't in the movie enough for me to like be that upset about him, but the Dr. Octopus thing that really upset me.
We're calling him Dr. Octopus this entire.
What's his name? What's his name? Octavius? Yeah, Octavius.
Octavius, yeah.
Yeah.
But Dr. Octopus.
I mean, like, Dr. Octopus, that's the villain's name, right? That's like his villain name, right? Am I remembering things wrong?
No, I think it's just Octavius, isn't it?
No, okay. I'm gonna like check because like I'm pretty sure when I was a kid it was Dr. Octopus.
Oh.
Because he had like, you know, he had like his normal limbs and then 4 others, and it's like 8 limbs. He's an octopus, but Octavius, we can call him Octavius.
No, let's call him Dr. Octopus. That's
Mr. Octopus. Please, doctor was my father. That makes sense. Sorry, I'm stressed out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it is Dr. Octopus, also known as Doc Ock.
Oh.
But like his like real name is Octavius.
Oh.
Yeah.
If they explain that in the movie, I don't remember. See?
No, I think they just kind of expect you to know who Dr. Octopus is, because like
honestly, yeah. I don't know anything.
Like I think Dr. Octopus like for a while was kind of like the Joker of not Batman, of Spider-Man. You know, he's like the villain, but then like they also had Green Goblin, who's also simultaneously the villain.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one was particularly annoying because like it was like a step further in my opinion. Because it was like, so he doesn't literally have schizophrenia.
No.
And whenever I tried to talk about it with someone, why this whole thing was really frustrating to me, they're like, well, it's not literally schizophrenia. But like,
I know.
It kind of is. Because like, they were saying that it's like his auditory hallucinations. And these voices tell him to do bad things. When like, there is no like implication of his character that he was like scared or tormented, and he's like, please, I'm scared, I want to hurt people because these voices are telling me to do it, and I'm scared I'm gonna get hurt because of it, you know, like like how a person who with schizophrenia would rationalize hurting another person. No, he's like malicious, but then the second they took away the voices, he's suddenly like your uncle, like he's so nice.
I know, it's definitely interesting. I think as someone who has auditory hallucinations, I feel like it is so dramatized. And I think part of that is because there are so many people who fake auditory hallucinations to get an insanity plea.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you can't test it. It's not like you can test the brain and be like, oh yeah, they definitely have auditory hallucinations.
Yeah, you know, like take their word for it.
Yeah, and so there are some people who obviously legitimately have it, but then you don't see on media, you don't see the millions of people who have it and don't do anything. You only see the people who supposedly have it and have done something bad. And I think that's where it's so frustrating, is that it just adds to this list of more people who do bad things because of something, rather than seeing the fact that 9 out of 10 people would not do something bad because of it. that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely. Like, you know, one of the things that I find really frustrating about, you know, this, you know, mental illness in media where like the mentally ill person's like a villain, or even just like, you know, like true crime circles or whatever, is like, the thing is, mentally ill people do commit crimes because mentally ill people are people and people commit crimes. They don't seem to understand that, like when mentally ill people commit crimes, 9 times out of 10, it's the same reason why anybody else would do crime.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like to a point where like we're so disproportionately represented in media as bad guys, where it's just like this is frustrating. I want to be the hero, you know what I mean? I want to be like, or at least not be shamed for, you know, being sick.
Yeah. And like there I don't know, it was actually the dude who Tom Holland was making the movie on. I can't remember his name, but he was
Oh, is it like that one guy who's like famous for being for having DID and being like a serial killer?
I don't know if he was a serial killer, but he did do a lot of bad things. But the thing that always upsets me is that he was not known to have DID before he got into court. And then he had maybe one session or two sessions with someone, and he was diagnosed with DID. And it's one of those situations where it's like people go through so many years of being in the mental health system to just get a diagnosis of DID. Why is it that someone can go into court after doing something bad and be immediately diagnosed with DID?
That's interesting. And it might be like, okay, fake claiming's bad. Just gonna put that out there. But like, there have been lots of people who you know, who like go in and then like they want a insanity defense, so they'll pretend to have schizophrenia or something. So it was after court, right?
I mean, there's so many different court trials, but it was like
Okay,
during
well,
the
you know
general
what, never
time.
mind. But what I was gonna say is there's a lot of like people who like get into prison who do violent crimes, you know, not like normal crimes where it's like, oh, there could be like a reason behind it, but like violent crimes where it's like where they're like, you know, the kind of criminals that are scary, if that makes sense. That will like, they'll like get diagnosed with a mental disorder, or they'll turn to God or something to make themselves look better.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, I'm not saying, you know, we're just gonna say this person actually has DID, because I don't like, you know, I believe in like respecting people even if they're bad people. Like, you can criticize them, you don't need to like say something horrible about them and still get your point across. But it's like one of those things where it's like, oh well, that's still kind of fishy.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, even if he did have DID and it was an actual diagnosis, why is it that he could get it so quickly and then other people can't?
Yeah, you're right. I do notice that like when it comes to court cases, they tend to take people more seriously because they want to get them in court as fast as possible.
Yeah, and they probably want to be as accurate as possible, which is kind of ironic because so many psychiatrists will tell you that they won't diagnose you immediately because they want to be accurate.
Yeah, because, you know, misdiagnosing people is like the worst thing that you could do.
Yeah, it's so funny because thinking about it, like I've heard so many times, I can't diagnose you with DID because I haven't had enough sessions with you, which is valid. And I think that's valid. But then it's like you get into court and suddenly you have one session and you can be diagnosed with schizophrenia or DID or anything that can get you a really big insanity plea.
Yeah. Also, I feel like those people, like the people who are getting an insanity plea, like it's like kind of messed up anyways, just because like they're like telling people that like, oh, we can get you off if we claim you're insane. When it's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Instead, you're gonna get a inconsistent like sentence. Like if you like actually like just get sentence of a crime, you just have to do like your 10 years or whatever, or even if you get life in jail, it's like, at least you have your stable sentence.
Yeah.
You don't have a stable sentence if you get innocent by reason of insanity. I'm sorry, not guilty because of reasons of insanity.
Yeah.
It's like
and
the whole system's messed up for a whole bunch of reasons, but it's just like, yeah. And so Tom Holland wanted to make a movie about this person.
Yeah, and everyone was like totally against it because obviously it's the one person who has done something bad and had DID, and he's making a movie about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened to the movie though, because that was a while ago and there hasn't been any news on it. So
hopefully not, because I think Netflix already made like a documentary about this person, and it's just like, it sucks.
Oh, it does. Well,
I think it's
I'll
called
have to
like
watch
the
that.
26 Faces. I'm not gonna watch it. Like I think true crime's interesting, but it's like I have my lines.
Yeah.
That's too upsetting for me because I don't like being associated with violent criminals.
Yeah, neither do I. It's like that moment that I was talking about in the movie theater where it's like, oh yeah, I experienced that, and then you realize you experience it, and it's kind of that feeling of just sitting there like, I relate to this villain. That hurts. There's no other way to describe it.
And it's not even like a villain where it's like written in a way where you understand where they're coming from. The thing is, like, another thing people don't really get about DID when they're portraying them as villains is that they kind of have this impression that that having DID is a good excuse, like as if like I'm gonna switch and then in a thing of just sheer confusion I'm gonna kill somebody. It's just like, no, they're pretty. They're like, unless they're having like an episode, they're pretty lucid, and if they are having an episode, then my DID is irrelevant.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, our system in particular, it has kind of a mechanism where to kind of help the switching amnesia, the person who's going to front will be co-conscious for a while so that they get a feel of what's going on, so that when we do switch, there's not this huge confusion. And I think even if systems don't do that directly, I feel like that's just normal for systems because it's supposed to be covert. And so it's not like you're gonna front and gonna be like, oh my gosh, I gotta go kill someone. I don't know who I am. It's like
or like they're malicious, like, I'm gonna go kill somebody. Excuse me, Johnny, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Throw Johnny under the bus. Look, if anybody's gonna kill someone, it's gonna be Johnny.
Not Johnny again. Not the ducks.
Not the Duck King. Immediately. But yeah, and like Norman in that movie is just like written so weird.
The other thing that I found out about that character is that he's not canonically. Canonically. He's not canonically like that. So he's actually pretty normal. There has been some debate as to whether or not he like created a second personality, but I found a Reddit user talking about it 3 years ago before this movie was made, obviously. And they said they would have assumed that Marvel would have gone with the idea that he was just a very scientific person rather than having this trope.
Actually, okay, you just unlocked a memory for me. I watched I watched Spider-Man a lot growing up, and some of them were good, some of them were boring. Most of the time, Osborn, whoever, whether it's Norman or his son or whatever, is usually just kind of like, he's like kind of like a superhero, but evil. So he's like, during the day, he's like the mayor, or he's like a scientist or something. And then at night, he dons the mask and becomes a villain. Like he's like just like a guy who, at night,
he just has a lot of different
blowing
faces
up buildings or something.
Yeah.
But there was one where it's like, you know what? Now that I think about it, yeah, that could be an attempt at making a DID villain. I completely forgot about that. It was in, I think the series was Ultimate Spider-Man, which was probably my favorite out of all of them. It was definitely the one that had the most fun writing and the most engaging writing, but that's its own thing. In that version, Peter Parker was friends with like the son of the mayor, who's the Osborns, right? And he was like kind of having this weird like episode going on where like he wouldn't remember being like doing crimes at night, but that came off as less of like a DID thing and more of just like a, because like people without DID can like do bad things and like black out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's not like necessarily a DID thing. That's how it came off to me, was that he was just blacking out.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, when you're in rages like that, you tend to black out anyways.
Yeah, I was just thinking like, so I guess there is precedent for it, but it's not the typical depiction, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think the reason why they did that was because the reason why they decided to go with this particular version of Osborn is because it kind of leans into the whole like, oh, I'm trying to fix them kind of aspect.
Yeah.
Like, if he's just like an asshole, like you can't fix being a dick.
Yeah.
But also he cured his DID, which is truly a magical experience. Every system, can't wait to get their DID cure. Thank you, Dr. Parker. It was honestly so cringy.
Yeah, it's that whole character. That character really just upset me. The other thing that upset me was that Aunt May referred to him as lost in the head, which would imply that he had a mental health condition.
Yeah, that's like you're right. Never mind. I take it back. You're right. That is a very toxic way for a mental health professional to talk about a patient. Yeah, you're right. Never mind. Sorry, I was thinking like I was gonna defend it by saying like, well, she didn't know that he had DID. He just looked like very like lost and confused. But like, you're right. A person like a social worker, which I think is why Aunt May was supposed to be, shouldn't talk about a person like that. They should be more empathetic. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of get where she's coming from if it like wasn't a DID standpoint and it's just like you're extremely confused because you just jumped dimensions, but it was so like specific, like, yeah, this other part of me comes out and he it's like a different person and I have amnesia. It's like, oh wow, my typical life experience is so freaky for you because it's a villainized thing.
Well, that is very much how singlets see us. At least the people who have enough money to make movies about us.
Whenever I fake claim myself, I always sit there and I'm like, if you were a singlet, you wouldn't be able to understand this much about DID.
Yeah. But you don't understand. I'm a very thorough researcher. Right?
Yeah. I'll have to keep that one in the back of my brain so that my imposter syndrome doesn't start fake claiming that too.
What, that you're a thorough researcher and that's how you can.
You're just an empath. That's all.
I almost said my fictional slur. The one.
The great one that we stan.
We stand.
Still think it should be a system name.
I don't want to encourage people. That's the thing.
Yeah. Don't encourage them.
Don't encourage them. I don't want the singlets to think it's okay. Look,
Yeah,
this
it's not just within the
this is
system
my
community.
word.
Only Dahlia can use it.
Only only I can use it, but Johnny keeps using it. I'm like, Johnny, that's my word. You can't just keep saying slurs about people. Okay, that came out wrong. He only uses slurs that people can use against him. Like, he's not like dropping any other words.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
Okay. He's not taking anybody else's word. Okay.
Yeah, the another thing that I wanted to hit on is how the Hulk, he does have DID based off the comics and everything. He does have DID, and what I like about that is that it is correct to how DID forms. I don't like the concept of how his alters take the form of the Hulk, but overall, it is correct.
Wait, what? Who were we talking about? I thought we were talking about Osborn.
I was bringing up the Hulk for a minute to go back to the Osborn thing. Okay. But he does have DID, and that's never mentioned or shown very well in Marvel.
Are we talking about Bruce Banner?
Yeah, Bruce Banner, the Hulk.
Okay, just clarifying. Yeah, I was gonna mention something about the Hulk, but so you're saying like they decided to like say yes, he's a character with DID?
Well, they didn't decide to. It's just based off the comics, he does have it, and I think him being a good guy, I think that would be, if they actually did it correctly, it would be fairly good representation of DID because based off the comics, it is correct. Positive. But they won't do it, but they then proceed to do it with a villain. Like, they refuse to do it with any good characters and only with bad characters. And that's another thing that I find very interesting. I know how they tend to use mental health like for villains only and not for the good guys,
or like
unless it's like depression or something.
Also, like when they do use it in a more positive way, it's like, I don't know, it's like very like tropey how they use it, even if it's positive, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like depression. Like, it's always something that can be cured by a friend just saying something very positive.
Nice, but like, generic.
Yeah, it's like in a depressive state, you probably wouldn't see that as positive.
You know, I will say this, since we're talking about it. I guess that's like controversial. I guess that's where DC actually does it better than Marvel.
Where?
They do mental illness a lot better.
Honestly, I've only seen maybe 3 DC movies.
That's fair. Marvel's significantly more popular in general, but sometimes they, like, you know, like, it would be completely random if I go and see a DC movie, because I'm not really a DC fan, but like they'll do something and it's like, oh, I actually kind of like that.
Oh, yeah.
I would say like the most like recent example I can think of is the most recent Suicide Squad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, in order for this to work, you have to, like, you would, Matteo, but like acknowledge that addiction is a mental disorder, right?
Yeah.
And
biological mental disorder, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know how like people like portray like alcoholics and drug addicts is like very destructive and always abusive and things like that, which like is true for a lot of people, but there are plenty of alcoholics and drug addicts that are like, you know,
more reserved.
They're like people, they're like, you know, they're like still like good people, they just are sick, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, anyways, one of the characters, I think her character's name was like Rat Girl or something. She had a machine that basically could like control rats, and it was actually a really cool superpower, but she inherited it from her father, who like, you know, trigger warning, drugs or whatever. He was like, I believe he had an addiction to like meth, I think, something like that. but like every time he was on screen, it was like very sweet, and it was like the tragedy of, you know, someone she loved and being very close to, you know, dying from his addiction. And every time you saw him on screen, it was like positive and nice, and it like genuinely like made me cry, because it was like,
Yeah.
wow, that was so kind. And I imagine that meant a lot to people who are suffering with addiction, to be allowed to be represented as like loving, caring people who are just, you know, who are just like, you know, they just have a problem and they need help. And it was just like, it was really nice. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I'm not being eloquent, but you know what I mean? Where it's like, he was allowed to be a good guy, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, I had to grab my cat. She was trying to eat a plant.
Okay, my cat is somehow in my room. I don't know where she was. I might have to let her outside because she's like staring at me.
Oh. I just got a kitten and she's so hyper. She just eats everything. So I have to keep a close eye on her.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
And then like they actually do have a few characters, you know, in DC that are actually canonically have DID, and I'm not saying they're good or bad representation, but they're like heroes, they're like protagonists, they're like good guys, if that makes sense. So like that helps too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just interesting to me that's like they tend to be more open about like DID symptoms with villains than they do with good guys, even though the good guys may,
you know, that's been like a whole thing for like over 100 years, like DID symptoms being associated with villainy. I think it's kind of, you know, I think that it's just like singlets kind of view DID as like the ultimate form of deception, and deception, of course, is like an evil trait. It's
yes,
weird.
because we're so deceptive, for sure.
We're so deceptive. We're liars.
It's funny because people will be like, "Oh, you're so deceptive. Like, I don't know who's front," and then they'll turn around and be like, "Well, alters aren't real people." Like, what are you saying? Like,
I don't know. I think it's less deceptive to like, you know, hide the fact that, you know, you're multiple people, as opposed to like being two-faced. But like saying, "Oh, I support you," and then behind your back, like, "Yeah, she's weird. She has DID." No. They would like use DID in front of me and then call it MPD in front of everyone else. I don't know if that's true. So I can picture Singlet doing that. And then their excuse would be like, "Oh, but people know what multiple personality disorder is. They don't know what DID is." I'm like, here's the thing, you have a mouth, you can explain it.
That's true. And half the time they don't even know what multiple personality disorder is. They just assume by the name.
Oh, my personal favorite is when they don't even use MPD. They're like, "Yeah, you know, split personality disorder." I'm like, that's even more outdated.
It is. I've seen so many people, like an article popped up the other day that was like, "What's split personality disorder?" I'm like, "What the heck is split personality disorder?" And then I like read it and they're like, DID. And I was like, there's another name for it?
Oh, you didn't know about it? Oh, right.
No,
You're sheltered. You're a sheltered baby.
Yeah. It was the research that I did.
Yeah.
That just, you know, made me so knowledgeable on DID experiences.
Delicious. But yeah, no. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. It's not funny. It makes me very sad. And like it, you know, I don't think I would be as bothered by the whole portraying a character with DID, like a villain with DID, if it wasn't for the fact that Marvel is such a big company and it's so influential. Like, I'd be mad, but this makes me like really upset.
Yeah, it definitely does.
They have whole teams of like writers and like all this kind of stuff, researchers, and they don't even have the dignity to, first of all, say the actual disorder's name in the movie, and to talk to a person with DID and find out that, hey, maybe that's a bad idea.
Yeah, it's definitely, normally I would say, well, maybe they just thought they made it up and it's actually disorder related, except they're so specific about how it's a different person. I have amnesia of it. It's scary. Like all these specific things that go with DID.
Honestly, it's like this movie, like, it made me angry, but like in the whole list of like DID related movies that make me angry, it's probably like right below Split. That's how annoying it is. Like Split is even worse because M. Night Shyamalan's like, yeah, I did a whole bunch of research. I think it's like one of the neatest things ever. I'm like, really? You did a whole bunch of research, but you didn't fucking talk to any of us? Like, that's the only
or
thing
you did so much
angry.
research and you didn't come to the own conclusion that it was a bad idea.
No, but I mean, like, some people are just like ignorant. Like, they'll think like, oh, it doesn't matter, whatever. But it's like, you did all this research and you didn't even talk to any of us. Like, you would think like you would want research straight from the source, but like you don't even give us the dignity of talking to us. Okay, enough. We can't just talk about Split. This is about Spider-Man. Fuck Spider-Man. He sucks. That's actually not true.
I like Spider-Man.
I like Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man, honestly, out of all the superheroes, is probably like the most like relatable.
Yeah.
It's like, he's not smart. Like, he's not super smart. He's not a billionaire. He's just like a kid who happened to become a superhero by complete accident. He's like often shown as like poor and like constantly struggling. Like, he's you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Peter Parker is you. And so I really like him because he's relatable. You can understand Peter Parker. And now Peter Parker has found the cure to DID. Wow, what a hero.
And it's what, like an injection in the neck. That's what we need. Skip the exorcisms. We need an injection in the neck.
We gotta like email those like researchers, those DID researchers. We gotta tell them it's one injection in the neck, sure.
We got to. It's like, okay, what's the we should just email them and be like, what's the formula?
We just send a clip of like Tom Holland as Spider-Man muttering to himself, doing the calculations, and it's like, yes, I understand now. That's the cure. That is so stupid.
Congratulations.
Okay, with Dr. Octopus, Mr. Octopus, of course.
Dr. Octopus.
With Dr. Octopus, at least it's like the technology, like it's an actual like physical thing. It's not like,
why is it always in the neck
though? But like, machine-induced schizophrenia. So like him like, just like fixing his computer makes the voices stop. At least that's like kind of makes sense. But that's just DID. Why are you making a cure for DID?
Yeah, I mean, even the technological aspect of Dr. Octopus, it still doesn't make any sense because like
I know it doesn't make any sense, but I'm saying it makes marginally more sense than the cure to a mental disorder, a chronic mental disorder.
It's like, even if there's just no physical way that someone could create a villain or part of themselves as a villain that specific way without it being DID. Like, DID is so complicated and so complex that if you do anything related to it, it has to be DID. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's like if you took pi and you just took the last number out of it, it's still pi. Because what is going to be that?
I love that analogy. DID is like pi.
Very complicated. But you know what I'm saying, where it's like, if you were to take
slogan, like that should be the description to your YouTube channel. DID is like pi.
I'm just gonna put that as the description. That's it. DID is like pi. But
to the video, you should.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm going to. And then like it says like hashtag Spider-Man, and people are like, why did you say Spider-Man?
I hope this gets views. I need people to realize what Spider-Man is doing over here. But what I was,
you don't understand. Spider-Man's a saint. He cured DID. This is a miracle.
This video is just going to be titled
Tom Holland.
This video is just going to be titled Spider-Man Cured DID.
Yes, you should. That's a good.
An educational.
It's essay. Not even clickbait because that's literally what happens in the movie. We're just talking about the movie.
The multiverse Spider-Man cured DID. Oh my goodness, Kitty! You don't knock over my microphone. Yeah, but what I was trying to make with the pie analogy was that pi is so complicated and so complex that if you were to take out the last number of pi, everyone would know that it's still pi because nothing else has that setup of numbers. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%. Like as long as you have like the first like 4 numbers, like, you know, the 3 and then the other ones, you would still recognize it as pi. No, your analogy is perfect. It's completely flawless. I just think it's the most beautiful analogy ever.
I'm glad it makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. It's a great analogy.
Yeah, but once you have
explain that to the singlets and they'll finally like it'll click and they'll understand it.
But once you have the formula of a multiple personality and amnesia, you have DID.
Like you could put a bunch of more, you could put more pancakes on top, but like it's still DID.
Yeah, it's still DID. Yeah, and there's nothing else that can. It's something that is so mental. I hate to say it like that, but it's something that's so psychological, I should say. It's something that's so psychological that it can't be made by technology. Like his problems could not have been made by technology. So therefore it has to be psychological.
Yeah, it's just it's psychological and we found the cure. Sorry, I'm still laughing at how ridiculous this movie is. And people are like, this is a great movie. And I'm like, you know what? If the movie was just like the 3 Peters, like goofing off, I'd be like, yeah, I love this movie. Great movie.
Yeah.
It's like, I like that part of the movie. Every other part of the movie made me stressed.
Honestly, valid.
It's about college. It was like, this is stressful.
It was a very stressful movie. I liked it in general. I just did not like the tropes in it.
Oh, that's funny. I have the opposite impression. I hated the movie, but I liked the Peters. The Peters can stay.
I like the Peters. I liked how they all kind of combined the awkwardness of Peter Parker in general.
Oh yeah,
the universes. That was funny.
It would have been like just really funny if like if it was 3 Peters and then for some reason like Miles is there. I think that's his name, right? the
we need Miles involved.
Black Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I love him. I did like that little reference they put in though, where the one guy's like, maybe there's a Black Spider-Man. Like, okay, we're talking about Miles. I like Miles.
I do too. I really like
this movie. I've just been about Miles. Like we just cut out Tom Holland. You know, we cut out like all the other ones, and it's just Miles. Like. That'd be really funny. Like, what if all the trailers were the same, but you went to go see the movie and it's just Into the Spider-Verse. It's like, wait a minute.
I like that movie though. When it came out, I thought it was really cool. Good.
I was like, okay, I don't care about the Oscars, but I was excited when that was nominated and won.
Oh, it did?
Nominated and won Best Animated film or whatever that category is called.
Oh, that's awesome. I loved the animation in it.
Because like there's some good movies that year, like in the animation category, but that movie was fantastic.
It really was, yeah.
And it was a technological marvel, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely liked it too.
But we're not talking about that movie. See, that's a movie that at least gave us the dignity of not mentioning DID.
Nicely enough.
But at the same time, not as good because they didn't give us the cure for DID.
I know, right? We really needed that cure. If they had just combined the cure for DID and the movie would have been absolutely spectacular.
The movie would have been a step up if at the very end they just threw in the cure for DID. It's an injection.
Yeah. What, green stuff? It's green stuff, right?
I don't remember. I saw
or maybe
it
was red.
Whatever.
There was a lot of green stuff. That's all I remember.
It's probably green because it would be a lot of red if it was Peter Parker in the Spider-Man costume and then a red syringe.
True.
It's the color balance would be completely off.
That's very true, yeah. But yeah, you just stick it into the neck.
Goblin. So the color balance would still be off.
The funny thing is that I don't think people realize that you can't just stick something in the neck like that.
Yeah, it's a movie. That's probably the lowest priority I have in the list.
Even when I was making characters for books, it always pisses me off because I would always make characters for books and I always liked the idea of sticking something in the neck, but I wanted it to be correct. I didn't want them to just stick it in there and have it go through the freaking throat or something.
I love the idea of you writing a review for this movie and be yeah, the DID stuff sucks, but did you see how they put the syringe in the neck? That's offensive to me.
Seriously, they just stabbed his voice box.
It's okay. Having a ruined voice box is totally worth the cure for DID. Why is this the funniest thing to me?
It's if you just stab them in the neck, their spinal cord will be fixed, and therefore the head will be fixed, and DID is cured.
That's how DID is created. It's you get a little kink in your spinal cord, and then
you get a little kink, and suddenly poof, an altar is there.
It's hi, my name's Greg. I'm gonna kill the entire city of New York.
Wait, but you know how DID patients, they actually have a smaller, not a smaller brain, but part of their brain is smaller because of PTSD?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, well, part of their brain is
that doesn't surprise me.
Oh, part of their brain is smaller because that part of the brain isn't being used half as much as the survival areas. And so I was just thinking the serum that they put in the neck actually inflamed that part and just cured the person of DID.
Yep, and then Grinch's brain grew 3 times that day, and then he didn't have DID anymore.
Yeah, that's how that works. Thank you, Tom Holland. We could have never done it without you.
No longer Dr. Peter Parker, just Tom Holland. I'm going to keep making fun of him because he had a terrible idea for a movie. Look, Tom Holland, I like you. Maybe in a month I'll forgive you. But how dare you come up with that idea for a movie?
Oh well. I'm going to have to watch Split after this and just get pissed off more.
It'd be really funny if we found a way to watch it together because I wouldn't be able to watch it, but if I was watching it with somebody who knew at least something about DID, I think I could get through it and it would be actually really funny.
You can share screens on Zoom, so if it doesn't stick, we probably could.
Okay, well, we need to watch it, okay?
Honestly?
We could watch it, and I can make fun of Shyamalan, because I didn't like him before that movie came out, and I really don't like him now that it came out. He ruined Avatar: The Last Airbender, okay?
Oh, he did?
Oh, you don't know
about that? I have yet to see that.
Okay.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you haven't seen? We just do a marathon, and then we do a podcast episode that's just us making fun of Shyamalan. We don't even mention Split the entire time. I just don't like him. He made one good movie and then thought he was God.
More DID drama that we need.
The T on M. Night Shyamalan.
We need to make a series that's just DIDT.
DIDT, absolutely. And you just put it the letter T so it looks like an acronym for a mental disorder, but it's just DID people, like, systems spilling the tea.
Okay, we need to do that. We need to have a series on this podcast for that.
I don't think I would be able to put up with it, but you know what? I'll at least sit here and hear you complain. Oh my gosh.
I have so much to complain about. I could go on about drama for days, and we all know it. I love the arguments.
Absolutely. But you know, that's for another day.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I do find it.
Marvel
it's just
is concerning me, because like on one hand, like there are some characters that like they don't have DID. I won't even make the argument that they have DID, but they're like characters that people in the DID community find meaningful and comforting. And it's like, you have all these characters that people with DID likes. Why are you doing this to us? You're like taking us.
Hold on.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Should I get back to being intense so you can just like it together pretend? You know, people keep relating to like Marvel characters and then they're shitting on us. I hope you got at least some of that.
I think I got the gist of what you were saying.
Yeah, basically, like, they have all these characters that at least DID people, you know, systems and stuff, like, genuinely, like, relate to, enjoy, even though they don't actually have DID. And then, like, they're like, actually, the only character who canonically has DID is, the bad guy. And they're kind of shitting on us, you know?
Yeah. It's so annoying. There's actually, I talk about this a lot, but Riverdale, that one hell of a show, one of the characters in it, she like, huh?
What I was just gonna say, I still haven't watched it. I remember when we first started talking, you're like, you should watch Riverdale so we could talk about it. I'm like, gosh, I watched 2 episodes and I'm like, I can't do this.
I know, it's honestly ridiculous. I somehow got addicted to just the stupidity of it.
You know, that's fair. I watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is the most absurd thing ever, and I can't stop myself, so I completely understand.
Honestly, it's always like the weird stuff or the stupid stuff that's just it's easier to watch.
Then you should watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, because that is the most bizarre show to ever exist. And it has a DID character we can bitch about.
Oh my gosh, I'll definitely have to watch it now then.
I have a lot of thoughts and opinions. I think I made a post about it on Amino.
Oh, I don't think I saw it.
Yeah, I have very complicated feelings about that character. On one hand, they are literally my phone background. Like, okay, my lock screen is one of them, and then my other screen's the other one.
Oh.
Like, it's the whole thing. I love the character, but at the same time, I hate them. I hate them. Anyways, but we were talking about Marvel and how Marvel, honestly, why are the people who should have the most, like, you know, be the most careful, always the least careful?
I don't know. It's interesting.
Because, like, you know how we were talking the last time, we brought up this whole point about how, like, you're like, well, do you think they'll, like, ever, you know, they meaning the non-systems, do you think they'll ever, like, accept us or whatever? Honestly, if Marvel showed positive representation of DID, they would start accepting us a lot faster. One of the major things that goes against us as systems is the fact that whenever we do get representation, it's always like, you know, I don't know, somebody made this video a while ago. I don't remember who it was. It was quite a while ago, like back before DID on YouTube just went down the toilet. But they said something along the lines of DID gets portrayed in two ways, and it's actually usually portrayed based off of like the gender of the system or like the sex of the system, where it's like male systems are always like horror or mystery villains, and then the women are always really pitiful, heavily traumatized people. And like, you know, how they portray the women is more preferable than how they portray the men.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think we should be portraying the women that way, because like the facts are pretty accurate, but like it's Tuesday, okay? As I said before, it's like, yeah, I have really bad days because, you know, you have to have complex PTSD to have DID, but you know,
Yeah.
it's just like most days I'm just like, I'm fine. I'm living my normal life. Okay, maybe not most days, but like I you know, I do function as a normal person.
Yeah.
Like,
that's the other thing is that I think in the DSM it does state that in order to have DID you have to like basically be suffering every day. It's kind of like how they put that is like, it's so interesting because I understand what they're saying, in the fact that mental health disorders, what makes it the difference between normal and abnormal is whether or not it affects you in a negative way. And like, I understand that. But to get to the point where it's like you have to be suffering every single day of your life in order to be valid, it's like, what?
all that's gonna do is make people lie to you.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
people
like,
are just gonna start lying. They're gonna say, like, I mean, unless they mean suffering as in experiencing symptoms every day.
yeah,
Like,
I sometimes wonder if like what they
if that's
perceive
what
to
they
be
mean, then
suffering
like,
is like
yeah, sure.
our Tuesdays, you know?
Suffering is Tuesday, okay?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
sure,
just
I feel like crying, but you know, at least I'm not actually crying, and that's
I know.
Tuesday. I'm joking.
I literally almost started crying today, all because of I was door dashing, and the person, they were like they told me to leave the food at their door, but their apartment complex was locked from the outside, so I couldn't even get in to like get to their door. And like I got such bad information overload and just like wanted to cry my eyes out. And it's like, yeah, that's, I guess, miserable, but at the same time you get so used to it, like
it's like, yeah, I cry, you know, at least once a week. But yeah.
I have mental breakdowns almost every day of my life. I have amnesia.
You know what?
I have dissociation. I can't remember my name half the time. I misgender myself all the time, but honestly, that's normal and it's okay.
Oh, that's really funny. It's not funny, but at the same time, it's kind of funny.
I literally told myself, as a trans man, you have to start embracing your feminism. And so I did. And now I started misgendering myself like every other sentence. And I'm like, seriously?
You mean like kind of like as a woman, like that kind of stuff?
Describe it a different way.
Well, you said like embrace your feminism, where it's like, as a woman, I appreciate if you don't talk over me. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what you mean by misgendering yourself?
Kind of. Okay. I don't even know how to describe it, because there was like something that said like, it was called it was a gay tarot deck, and I saw it. Yeah, and I saw it and I thought it was funny, and my friend was like, you should get it, and I said, I think it's only for gay men. And I realized I am a guy.
Well, are you gay? That's invasive, but what?
Pansexual.
Okay.
So yes.
Well, you're still not a gay man. You get out of gay spaces, you dirty pansexual.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I'm joking. I don't actually mean it.
I know. But Yeah, I don't know how we got into this topic, but I'm
I
so
don't know. We were
dissociated right now,
talking
like
about
every
suffering
second.
every day.
Oh yeah, how the DSM talks about like.
Yeah, I don't know how we started talking about the DSM, but you know.
Honestly, I'm so
Memory.
dissociated right now. Like every 2 seconds of my life is just disappearing from my brain. I probably won't remember this.
That's valid. I got really heated, and now I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I don't even
That
have
movie made me
that
so
movie
dissociated.
bad, really bad.
Yeah.
Bad movie. 10 out of 10. Bad movie.
Yeah, very interesting
Meme
movie.
that
Definitely.
nobody in my life gets anymore because my boyfriend broke up with me, and he was the only person who did that with me. But we would be talking about a like for example, like a video game or something. And then we'll run into a very, very, very minor problem. And we'll be like, oh, clipping, bad game. And I don't have anyone to do that with anymore because the only people who, knew that joke was my boyfriend and the people I thought were my friends. But when we broke up, they decided, hey, we're not your friends anymore.
Ugh. I hate it when people do that.
I have no social circle. Sometimes I talk to people on Amino, and that's my entire friend group.
Honestly, same. I have my roommates and my cat. That's
and
it.
Me, I hope.
Yes,
I think
and
we talk too much to not be friends. And
probably. I think the last episode sealed it.
So I almost watched Riverdale for you, and that's something I would only do for a friend.
Honestly, valid. Like
I didn't watch it, but I almost did. I thought about it.
I felt bad asking you when I realized that you hadn't watched it. I was like, you do not have to watch it.
No, I had watched 2 episodes before talking to you, and I'm like, this is bad.
Yeah.
Like it was like funny at first because of how bad it was, and then it just kept going. And I'm like, okay, the joke is outstayed its welcome.
I'm almost on season 6 of it. Like, how have I survived this far?
I don't know. People like, I guess like the joke didn't get old for some people. I know there's something about maple syrup because somebody like on YouTube mentioned it. I'm like, excuse me. It's like something about like meth and maple syrup.
Meth and maple syrup? I only know like maple syrup, like in the movie or in the show.
No, in the show. I'm sorry. Yeah, there's meth and maple syrup in Spider-Man. No big deal. I know we glossed over that aspect of the film, right?
I'm so dissociated.
I shouldn't be making this joke while you're so dissociated. I don't think it's hitting you.
It's not. I'm just sitting here in a fog, like what?
The meth and maple. That was 2 of the ingredients to cure DID.
Oh, that's what we need.
Meth and maple syrup injected directly into our voice box.
Yes, directly into the voice box, and it inflames that part of the brain that is smaller. And don't forget that DID is equated and equal to pi.
Exactly.
The mathematical equation for this cure is pi.
Anyways, is there anything else you want to say about the movie? Because if not, we can just like, talk about like just DID like as a trope in general, if you want.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You'll probably have to lead because my brain is gone. Sorry.
Yeah, I have I like made notes on it because I was like, I was talking to you about it. I'm like, do you want me to talk about like, DID as a villain, like where that came from and stuff? I don't know a lot about like DID like as a trope in like a lot of other genres, but I can tell you definitely about like, like horror, which I think is where it originated from, like using DID as a trope, as a villain character. Okay. I believe it originated in like horror, to be honest. And the funny thing was, when I say horror, I actually mean like Gothic literature. I'm pretty sure like the earliest like form of something that, you know, you would have to like squint to see it and be like, yeah, I guess it's kind of a DID thing. Yeah, is definitely like, you know, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which was a book I had to read in high school. And it's like the real and most bizarre thing, because it's like, you know, it's like, that's like one of those books that always gets referenced. Like when somebody tries to explain what DID is, they'll be like, oh, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a thing, right? I'm not like being old, right? Maybe that's not a thing anymore. Maybe people only reference Split nowadays.
I don't know. I'm so sorry.
Do you know what Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is? I can explain it to you.
No, I do, but I'm just like, my brain, literally everything that's coming into my brain right now is going out the other ear. So,
I mean, we could like stop this until you feel better if you want.
I think I'm just gonna get water and then I should be okay. If you just want to like talk while I'm drinking water, that works.
While you're drinking water? Sure.
Yeah, okay. Let me go grab some water real quick.
Okay. I'm just gonna like keep filling the air until Matteo gets back, because it's just gonna be really awkward if there's just like this pause. But I think like the first thing you have to kind of understand is you know, just like the history of like horror as a genre. It didn't really start out as like it didn't start out as just like horror fully formed. It started out as stories progressively getting more and more scary until eventually they're like, hey, we want a whole like movie or a whole book that's just about scary stuff. And the earliest form of horror actually originates from like the 1700s-ish. It was just after the Romantic era of literature.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, Mateo's back. I was just giving a little bit of context. So like the 1700s like is like just after the Romantic era in literature, which was like a lot of like poetry. And it was like a big thing for poetry, because poetry up to that point was very much tended to just be like religious things mostly.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, I want to write poetry about anything, right? And it kept getting like darker until they started making like books and poetry that are like kind of almost sinister, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where it's, you know, and like most famously Edgar Allan Poe is one of those writers that wrote kind of almost horror.
I love Edgar Allan Poe.
This was horror before horror, right?
Yeah.
And that's where like Gothic literature came from. And the first like story that was like kind of exclusively about like two people sharing a body, but only if you haven't read it, was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? Which is a Gothic novel. And I use the word novel very loosely because it was only like 50 pages.
Short story.
It's actually called a novella, but is basically just a long short story.
Oh, okay.
And I had to read that book in high school. But like up to that point, I only knew that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was like, you know, the guy who at night turned into like a different person, right?
Oh, now I know what you're talking about. I knew like the reference,
the name,
but I
didn't know what it was. That's fair. Yeah. You know, but like when you actually read it, you realize that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
And it's like really weird, because on one hand, I know that some people don't have the like attention span to like read a book, but on the other hand, it's 50 pages. You can read it in like an hour.
Yeah, I'll probably read it
I'm
after
not even
this.
a very good reader, and I read it in an hour. But like, it's just not about DID, but like, it's still like kind of ish have that vibe of like a DID villain. And that's kind of the earliest example of that. What it's actually about is like a guy who wishes he could do bad things without any social ramifications. So Mr. Hyde isn't like a separate persona or like a personality. It's literally just a like scientifically induced disguise.
Oh.
And it's also like kind of a metaphor for like somebody's bad habits, like taking control of them. And by bad habits, I mean like assaulting people.
Weird.
But it was mostly just commentary on like the strict social structures of the Victorian era in Britain. So it's just like, it's not about DID, but people keep acting like it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of like an important like thing to keep in mind when it comes to like tropes associated with DID. It's like, it's a lot of like, hey, this has been a trope for like so long, we gotta keep it going kind of thing. I don't know if they gotta keep it going.
And they could stop. I mean,
they could stop, but they won't. And it's actually one thing I noticed that when it really started like getting really popular to make your horror villain like a DID character, it like kind of started with like Psycho, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing about that is they're extra juicy, you know. Psycho's like extra juicy because it's like not only is it like, you know, just kind of ableist because, you know, they're like, oh yeah, a person with DID will definitely like hurt you, but it's also like incredibly transphobic too.
Oh, ugh.
Yeah,
we do not stand.
That movie was inspired by like a real person.
Oh,
yeah, well, actually it was based off of a book, but like it was inspired by a real person who ironically does not have DID, but always gets characterized as characters who have DID. Yeah, his name was Ed Gein. He was like, people say he's a serial killer. Legally, he's not. He's only ever been like accused and convicted of killing 2 people. He's actually like mostly known for being a grave robber that took bodies and like took skin and like made stuff out of them.
Oh, that's so weird. I found I didn't find them, but I've heard of like dark web websites that do stuff like that. It's so weird.
Yeah, actually, nobody really makes things out of human skin. It's really uncommon. I think most people who say they make stuff out of human skin are just like trying to like be edgy.
It's just someone on the dark web or dark web, and it's like a 13-year-old edgy girl trying to be edgy.
It's a lot of edgelords with too much time on their hand that want to weird people out. I mean, there have been like cases of like synthetic human skin being made into stuff, but like, yeah, it's not really a thing. It's only like, I think there's only like ever like 2 or 3 cases of people actually doing it. And like the only famous case of people doing it is Ed Gein. And like, he was just like this guy who like, he wasn't the brightest man. He was like kind of slow and not very smart. And he had a really unusual relationship with his mother. And I think that's why a lot of horror movies were based off of him, because like he has this weird relationship with his mother and he never recovered from like her death. And then he makes things out of human skin and like he kind of like doesn't remember robbing graves, but he very clearly robbed graves. And you know, people often like spice him up, make him an actual serial killer, but you know, he might have been a serial killer, but like they only found really evidence of him killing 2 people. And like the legal definition of a serial killer is someone who's killed at least 3 people on like 3 different occasions.
It's a borderline serial killer.
Yeah, so he's like a borderline serial killer, but he's mostly just a grave robber.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, like, and he like tried to make a like costume, like a woman costume out of skin. It was really gross. And
I
people are like,
think I've heard
wow,
of
a
that
person
before.
who murders and makes things out of human skin and like dresses like a woman, that's so scary. Let's make it into a movie. You know what I mean?
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, actually, and then like a lot of movies are inspired by, you know, Psycho. Like, I mean, pick a horror movie, probably inspired. Just saying. Do I even need to list any? Like, I mean, I can.
Have you seen The Village by any chance?
No.
It's a horror film. It's the first horror film I saw, and it triggered me, and I had a panic attack halfway through it, so that was fun, but it was interesting.
Yeah, I don't really watch horror movies for a wide variety of reasons, but most of which is just I'm just waiting to like go see a horror movie and then be like told, "Hey, look at this scary DID man. Isn't that so scary?"
Honestly.
Yeah, at some point I feel like, I don't know when, because I don't watch a lot of horror movies, but I feel like combining transphobia with ableism was like, you know, took too much effort for people. So like most of the time when they pay homage to like this trope, they either choose the DID or they choose the transphobia.
Yeah.
They tend to choose one or the other. It's actually really horrifying. I mean, I learned a lot about this from like a video that Lindsay Ellis did a while ago. It's a really informative video, I feel like. And it was like, when I was watching it, it was just kind of the realization, because I always thought of like those tropes as inherently like ableist, because, you know, I am a you know, like a cis person with a mental disorder, right? Yeah. So like that's how I always viewed it. But like watching that video, because it was literally just about transphobia, it really opened my eyes to the fact that like these people are just all around bigots. It's just like, I never thought about how like the often the alter that's like kind of played up to be scary is often like a female alter in a male system, like not a male system, but like a system whose body's like male, you know? Yeah, it's like really fucked up, honestly.
Yeah, I think this just reminded me, one of our persecutors did a video, and he said he doesn't understand why people would consider persecutors to be like the evil alter, because if someone were to take all their bad coping mechanisms and just put them into one section of the brain, that's basically what he would describe himself as. And I think putting it like that, it makes me realize how that part of DID, like, you know, persecutors and stuff like that, it's literally a part of everybody's lives, but it's just not as developed, if that makes any sense.
Or like they're just like singlets, so they don't have to like worry about it all.
Yeah, it's spread out.
One alter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good way of putting it. It's way more eloquent than how my persecutor put it. Okay, technically I'm that persecutor, but I think I mentioned it last time, or like one of the alters that integrated to create me was like our persecutor.
Yeah,
and he's not like, he was his like description of how like he always thought it was stupid that people are scared of persecutors because, quote, "you're not special."
I love that. That's a perfect way to put it.
I'll give you that, but it was very much like it's just like, look, other alters in my system, that's special. You're not special. I don't give a shit about you.
I love that. But
yeah, I'm not sure that'd be very convincing to singlets, though.
They might be a little taken aback.
Yeah, you're not just him being straight up rude. Oh my gosh, trying to picture like what would happen if, thank goodness Derek has never spoke to like a person outside of her system, because I think that would have been very bad. He was very bitchy.
Honestly, if someone came up to me and said that, I'd be like, you're right.
What, you're not special, or like,
yeah, I'm not special.
You're not special. He just goes up to you and just unprompted rants about.
But
yeah, this trope has been around for like a long time. I think like how it might have crossed over to other genres, and this is all speculation, because like, you know, I only know so much, right? And like, I'm only so willing to research this stuff because it's a lot of fake claiming. Because it's a lot of people talking about the trope, and they're like, well, I mean, you know, this is really stupid because it's not a real thing, but people pretend it is. It's a lot of that when you're like looking into this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, but like, I'm pretty sure maybe it started to cross over into other genres because of maybe mystery shows, you know what I mean? Like the idea of, you know, like if you like look at it like separate from like the fact that there are real people with DID, if like it was fake, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a very clever idea. It was the one person the whole time, but they just didn't know, you know what I mean? It is kind of intriguing. Yeah. The only problem is it's not very original, and they're real people.
Probably not. Yeah.
Like it's those two things. It's not very original, and it's like real people, you know?
I know, like, you would think they would come up with a different trope by now.
You think, but I think they don't realize that it's been done like 20 times before, or they do and they're like paying homage, which, you know, homage to ableism is very classy, I agree.
Yeah. Honestly, it's thinking about how, I guess I didn't realize how often it was actually used until I just saw Spider-Man, and that was like,
it kind of clicked.
Yeah, because I never saw Split. I've seen like a bit of it, but I haven't seen it fully yet, and so I knew the impact of it, but I don't think I knew it personally, like sitting down in a movie theater and actually like just having a moment where it sinks in that I relate to a villain and it's because of a trope. Like just
yeah, it's a trope. Exactly.
Yeah. I think having that experience was really like, oh yeah, this is real.
Not only that, but like when you aren't a villain, you're like a punchline. It's very strange. Like there's this one show, it's like a Canadian show, that's like a parody of like reality TV shows, like kind of like Survivor and things like that. It's called Total Drama, right? They had a character who canonically had DID, that they used MPD, like, you know, which was annoying, but they were. And like, there were things that I really liked about that character, because first of all, he wasn't like a bad person or anything, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of struggles that was put into that character that's like, wow, this is really accurate. And like, you know, watching it again as an adult, it was like my first like experience of DID in fiction, you know what I mean? Like a canon DID character. And I liked it as a kid, but like as an adult, like there's a lot of things that really like hit home for me that were like, oh my gosh, I relate to this character. Because the first season was all about how like he was like, first of all, he was an overt system, which I can relate to a lot, has an overt system. And not only that, but part of the joke was people were rationalizing how he could, you know, why he acts so strange, which is very accurate as an overt system. It's like, you trust me, singlets don't notice no matter how obvious it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the whole joke was he was like trying to hide it because people obviously treated him very poorly for his DID, right? And like, I really related to that. It was really good. It was like, you know, like the parts that worked were really well done, and the parts that didn't work, because there are certain parts I really relate to, the parts that were just completely wrong, like, oh, it hits so bad. It was just like,
It really
this is
does.
painful. It's just like, oh my gosh. And then, like, when people figured it out, they were kind of like manipulative about it. Like, you know what I mean? Where like they're manipulating him to do certain things because they figured out like his triggers or whatnot. And it was just like, oh, this is it feels really bad because it's like so real, but they're making light of it.
Yeah. That's always annoying.
And then they added, and then the next season, like, how do we top it? Oh, evil alter trope, which, like, you know, if we ever decide to talk just about this show, I could talk about it for hours because I have a lot to say about it. But, like, on one hand, you shouldn't ever do the evil alter trope. It always goes bad. But at the same time, the way he was evil, because it was like a kid show, you couldn't have like a person being murderous on a kid show. I mean, you can, but in a different way. It has to be done in a different way. It was just like he was just kind of like a 13-year-old punk. And I'm like, you know what? I'm slightly more okay with this than like other things, but it was just like. But then it's just like, just because you do something well doesn't mean you should do it. I think at this point you have to just kind of stop and like back away from using that trope.
Yeah.
In general.
I think it's also important to say that even if there was a murderer who had DID, the chances of the murderer in the system being one of the alters, I feel like, is low because they aren't out as often. It's just not as likely.
You mean like a non-host?
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, like, I feel like generally speaking, since like a system is like, you know, they all share a brain. If one person's capable of doing something in the system, then like all of you are, you know what I mean? And I just don't find it very likely that like all of these people can be like super good, super pure, perfect people, and then just having one be violent. I feel like I feel like it would like, you know, it would affect everybody in the system if one was a particularly violent person.
Yeah, it definitely would. And I think it's just, it's, you know, what's the statistically, if there was one alter in the system that was, you know, a murderer or something, what's the chances of them actually murdering?
Oh, that's a good point. Like, even in their fantasy world, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and like you can have, the other thing is that you can have homicidal ideation or tendencies without actually being a murderer. So
yeah, I feel like, I know that's kind of like a weird thing for people who don't ever feel that way to grasp, but like there are like normal people who feel that way sometimes.
Yeah.
Like they want to kill somebody, but they don't because they know it's wrong.
Yeah. It's like, you know, if someone's being stupid and you decide to tailgate them, like you're potentially putting someone's life in danger by doing that, but you're just so angry at the time that you don't care.
Yeah. Or like, you know, I mean, it's like any ideation. Ideation doesn't mean you're going to do something. It means you're inclined to do something. And yeah, like, I don't know. And
it's
like,
also, what's interesting is that people claim that DID is so rare, and yet if it was so rare, why is it that murder is so, like, if, let's say, because people believe, like, let's say people believe that one, is rare, and that two, people who with DID are murderers, then why is murder so common?
Also, I think like part of the reason why people say DID is rare is because like I think there was a statistic at some point that it was 1% of the population, and people don't understand that 1% is a huge number.
I know. Oh, people talk about
There's
this so
lots of
much, and
things
it's
that
like,
are
what is
1%.
not clicking with you?
There's lots of things that are 1%, and people are like, oh, if it's 1%, it's rare. No.
Yeah, I was actually looking at statistics for, I think, bipolar and other health disorders. DID, while it's on like the lower end of those disorders, it's still generally in the mix of around 1 to 5% of those, like
number.
all those disorders combined. So it's really not that much different. It's just on the lower end, but it's not rare.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. One of the things that I always say that make people like kind of get it, like, I mean, most people just say, do you know more than one redhead? Because a redhead is about 1% of the population. Mm-hmm. But what I always say that makes it makes it click for people is you probably see about 100 people a day.
Yeah.
You know, like 100 people is not as many as you think it is. That means like one of those people that you just randomly walk by statistically have DID.
Yeah,
and like that's not even the statistic.
Yeah, what's funny is that so many people call it rare. I've known 2 or 3 people in real life that have DID, not including myself.
Not including yourself, of course.
So that in itself, I mean, it's likely that in your lifetime, you could meet up to like 5 people with DID in real life.
And like, you know, sometimes, and like these people like hide a lot. Like your mom could have DID and you wouldn't know.
Yeah, it's
like,
true.
That could be like your family member, like, and it wouldn't be that unusual.
Yeah, it's like,
it wouldn't be that unusual.
Yeah, thinking about how like my family didn't really realize that I had DID until I was 18. Yeah, that's been with me my entire life. So
yeah, and like once again, as I said before, it's an overt system. People are like, hey, like they'll assume everything before DID.
Oh yeah.
Famously, my primary predictor kid has resting bitch face while everyone doesn't, and everyone else doesn't. I'm not joking. He has resting bitch face. Like it's like, you know, people don't realize how much of things that are automatic for you are based off of your personality and stuff.
Yeah.
Resting face, that's based off your personality. And kid, he has resting bitch face, and so everybody thinks that when he's out, it's me in a really bad mood.
Oh.
He honestly at work, and he's like, I'm never doing this again, because our manager kept saying, did you like get in a fight with your mom or something? And I'm like, excuse me. I didn't say that, kid said it.
Yeah, one of the alters I was before the integration, Ananiah, he was completely mellow in comparison to any alter in our system. And so whenever he was front, everyone would be like, are you okay? Are you depressed? Are you sad? And he was just like, he's probably the least depressed. He probably was the least depressed alter in our system. Yeah. And everyone was just like, are you depressed? Like, are you doing all right? And he was just like, yeah, like, I'm just keeping the body level for once. Like,
oh, so like Roxy.
Yeah.
Except Roxy doesn't feel anything. He's not mellow. He just feels nothing.
Yeah. Ananiah was a caretaker, so like physically he was more mellow.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that makes sense.
I don't know if I don't think I got that trait because I am like the first day of integration, I took anxiety medication. Those anxiety medications are supposed to put me to sleep. They didn't even take the anxiety away. So
but see, that's another thing. Like if people just like spoke, like, you know, to like one of us, like, hey, I have DID, talk to me. Like, I don't think they would immediately like leave this saying, yes, these would be the perfect villains for a horror movie. I think they'd say, honestly, man, people would be great for a sitcom.
Like sitting here listening to us, like, would you say we would be good for a horror film or a comedy relief?
Oh, obviously a murderer. I'm a horrifying murderer. I go around. Yeah, that's the thing you don't know about us, that we are actually bad representation of DID. Me and Matteo, we get together and we kill people. If somebody like decided they hated us and clicked that out of context, like we don't.
That would be awful. We start drama on the internet unintentionally because someone clipped that out. There's just gonna be on TikTok and it's just this audio going around of us saying that.
Oh, actually, I would kind of love that. Like, I don't have TikTok, but if people were like using that as like their like TikTok background, I would approve.
Imagine, I would literally have so much fun with that.
15-year-olds like lip syncing me saying, "Me and Matteo go out and kill people."
That would be hilarious, honestly.
They're like in weird cosplays that aren't relevant to DID. Are you saying
okay.
that I love how you think I'm gonna be the comedy relief character in a TV show. I thought about it. I'm like, we need like a United States of Tara show, but like actually good.
Yeah, for sure.
Like one that maybe like we get a team of people with DID and we just like write a sitcom. Like there's a lot of people with DID, so like obviously there'd be enough talent to actually like do it. And then like the show could be about like the joke could be like the system has to put up with all the bullshit that all the singlets do. But like they think that like the system's out of hand when they're just like, it's Tuesday for them. That would be a great show. I think people would find that funny. Like even singlets would laugh because it's like it inverts expectation. Like
my friend and I were once talking about how we should have a comedy show for DID, and it should be like all about how the ice cream disappeared.
Oh yeah, it was actually really funny because I considered like, it'd be really funny if I did like a stand-up show, like where all my jokes are about DID. But then like I'm like, no, I'm not that funny. But then I'm like talking with you, I'm like, I have a lot of jokes about DID.
It would be hilarious. I would totally
funny.
Go.
It would be pretty funny.
You just throw out the name
pie.
that the pie, yes.
Oh, that wasn't where you were going? What were you going with?
The thing that I keep saying would be a great DID system name.
Oh, I just throw out my slur that I made up for the system.
That would be a kicker.
Like, it's a really obvious thing, in my opinion. You know what I mean? I feel like the people haven't thought about it because they're too busy trying to prove that we're liars.
I know. When you sent it, I was like, how has that not been made
how is it
yet?
not a thing, right? Like, I'm not that clever. How did I come up with it but nobody else did?
But it's absolutely amazing. I still think it should be a system name. I would love it as a system name.
I just start like an account and then just that's my name.
We should make a series on here specifically for podcasts between us, and it should be called that.
Yes, but like the plural version, obviously. I mean, yes. If you just want if you want this podcast, like the one you're doing, to just be like you talking about things, but you want to do a podcast that's both of us, I'm down.
I think we should, honestly,
because I think we got kind of a good chemistry going on.
We do, really, honestly. It's fun.
Honestly, yeah.
I enjoy it. I just think it's a little long. I mean, we've been going for like over an hour now.
Long?
Yeah, the last one was like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, but isn't that like how a long podcasts are?
That's true. A lot of podcasts are long. I don't have the attention span for long podcasts, so I don't really check to see how long they are.
Yeah, well, they're like at least an hour. Some of them are kind of shorter, but most of them are like at least an hour.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, we totally should make a podcast like separate from mine. That'd be
and we'll just
great.
talk about whatever. You know, we can talk about like a movie we hated.
Should this be the first episode of it?
What?
Should this be the first episode of it?
Yeah.
I could make it up tonight.
All right, cool.
I need to make a logo for it.
All right. I mean, I can make a logo if you want.
We could both combine making logos.
I love how like we're just talking about logistics now. We're not even talking about movies anymore. But no, it's okay. We don't have to talk about DID anymore. Remember Tom
Holland? I was cured. Yeah, thank you, Tom Holland.
Thanks, Tom Holland. That could be the name of the episode. Thanks, Tom Holland. You know how you said Spider-Man cures DID? Tom Holland cured DID.
I would feel so bad for being so direct about it.
People clicked on this podcast and they're so confused. Like, wait, Tom Holland did what?
You know what? That's actually going to be the name of it.
That's funny.
Okay, I'm going to make that up tonight then.
All right.
Do I have permission to use the slur name for the podcast?
You know what? Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yay.
I give you permission to use the word idiot.
It's literally so perfect.
Use it against us. Actually,
no, they're not. It's our podcast name. They're not allowed to. We have copyright claims on it. Huh?
What do you think? Do you think it should be the DIDiots or two DIDiots?
I think it should just be DIDiots.
Just DIDiots? Okay.
Just DIDiots. I literally love it. I'm also going to make that our Gmail account for the YouTube channel.
DIDiots. Absolutely. You know how people read fan mail at the end of like their podcasts? We can just like read our fake claim things. Fake claim mail.
I would love that. Oh my goodness.
Dahlia is totally faking right now. You can tell because of how her voice is. People with DID don't have voices like that. I don't know what they would pick. I'm sure there's a lot of things that I said that would be proof that I'm faking, but
probably. I mean, I'm sure there's
a person wouldn't talk about cool Jonathan like that. Jonathan's too cool. Only a faker would say such terrible things about Jonathan.
Honestly. But I think, what was I gonna say? Oh, I was gonna say something. It completely left my brain. What was I gonna say?
Something about DIDiots.
I think so. Darn it. Oh yeah, if we ever got hate comments, we have to make an entire session just reading those and laughing at them.
That sounds stressful, but sure.
It would literally be so much fun, in my opinion. I'd just be sitting here like.
I think it would have to be Johnny doing that because like that genuinely sounds stressful to me, but I'm sure Johnny would love it.
Bro, if he wants
Johnny
to,
would go into the comments and then like comment a duck at them. Just a photo of a duck.
I love that.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Should we wrap this up then?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm starting to dissociate again.
Needed to say about like media and representation and how Tom Holland cured DID. I think that's basically it.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a what's it called? Conclusion. There we go. That's the word. So, see, I'm so dissociated right now. So in conclusion, we talked about Spider-Man. What's it called? No Way Home? No Way Home.
Tom Holland cures DID.
Tom Holland cures DID, yeah. Using serum that is poked into the vocal cords and expands the brain where it is smaller. We literally have scientific backup for it too.
Oh yeah, no, we scientifically proved how it cures DID. Don't ask where all the altars go. They turn into butterflies.
They expand.
Oh my god.
Okay, so we talked about that. We talked about schizophrenia tropes and DID tropes and how it is ridiculous that people use them.
Somehow it showed up in the most recent Spider-Man movie.
Yes, how we got 2-in-1. It's 2-in-1 package.
Yeah, the 2-in-1 package. Absolutely.
Yeah. We also got what else did we get in there? We talked about history of tropes.
Done by me poorly, but that's okay.
We mentioned Johnny a little bit.
Because of course we did.
Yes, absolutely. We had a session of me being absolutely dissociated for a couple minutes. We talked about Split. Yeah, we talked about.
We're gonna come back to that topic at some point.
Oh yes, absolutely. I'll have to watch it tonight and then just make a whole essay on it.
All right.
We need an official
logo.
Intro.
Official logo. Intro.
An official intro. Actually, I'm going to
official everything.
Yeah, I'm going to record the intro right now, actually, and then put it at the beginning.
Sure.
Wait, what should it be? We have to
be whatever that buzzing sound is.
It was the door opening.
Okay.
Let's think here.
You can always come back and record it later.
Welcome to DIDiots.
Welcome to DIDiots, where we talk about Tom Holland and DID.
Welcome to DIDiots. This is our podcast. I hope you enjoy.
What if our next episode, we can cut out all this babble while we're talking. But I think the next episode, we should just keep casually bringing up how our life has improved now that Tom Holland has cured our DID. It's I would have found this offensive, but Tom Holland cured my DID, so now I'm a singlet. Therefore, I don't get it anymore.
Oh my goodness. I seriously think we should do that. We should just start every episode with how our life is going now that we have been cured.
Okay.
That would be perfect. Okay, that's a perfect intro. So for this intro, okay, let me record it. Hold on.
Maybe it should be hello, welcome to DIDiots, our weekly podcast where we discuss DID. In this episode, we will be discussing how Tom Holland cured DID. Isn't that right? And then that will be your intro. What do you think of that?
Okay, let me record it. Hello and welcome to our weekly DIDiots podcast. My name is Matteo. What is your name?
I'm Dahlia. Hi, I'm back.
And we are going to be talking about how Tom Holland cured our DID.
Sorry, I didn't do it again. I can't take it seriously.
That's gonna be the intro. It's just me saying that and you're gonna burst out laughing.
No, I think you should do it again one more time. And okay. I should be yeah, he cured our DID. We're good now.
Okay. Take 2. Hello and welcome to our weekly DIDiots podcast. My name is Matteo. What's yours?
I'm Dahlia.
And today we are going to be talking about how Tom Holland cured our DID.
Oh my gosh. Like, my life has improved so much. Thank you, Tom
Honestly,
Holland.
yeah, same. I am no longer suffering from amnesia. That's so crazy.
And you know what? It has moved on to Wednesday now. It's no longer Tuesday.
I wasn't expecting that part.
Me neither. That was good. That was good. That should be your intro.
Okay, that's perfect. All right, now we should probably record the outro.
All right, our outro. Our outro should be something like, we learned, thank you for listening to DIDiots. We finally decided to go with the term DIDiots. Our slur is now available for all, except you can't say them.
Copyrighted it.
We copyrighted it.
We're copyrighting it.
We trademarked DIDiots.
I'm gonna make the logo, and I'm gonna put a little copy mark sign next to it.
Well, I mean, technically, it is copyrighted since we came up with it.
That's true. It is.
That's how copyright works.
Yeah, no one can use it.
You can sue people for daring to come up with the term idiot. Oh my gosh.
It's ours now.
It's ours now. So our outro, once again, thank you, Tom Holland, for curing our DID. Yeah. Life has been so much better now.
I know, right?
Okay. You know what? He should make that movie. And at the end, we cure the serial killer of their DID. And then we release them back into public because it totally was their DID.
I think that actually was the point of the movie. It was something about he was going to make a series on people overcoming their mental illness. So,
oh, well, that's cute. If you just ignore the fact that he doesn't fundamentally understand chronic mental disorders. You're gonna need to do a lot of editing, Matteo.
I'll have to listen through all of this.
Oh my gosh! And you said you struggle with the podcasts. I feel so
attention span. Yeah. Well, it'll be okay. I'll multitask. I'll make the logo. Okay,
let's come up with an outro conclusion to this.
Oh yes, an outro conclusion. Tom Holland has cured our DID. We are no longer DID.
The most important point of the entire episode.
It really is. We know our voice box. So basically how he did it, he stuck a needle in our necks. Our voice box was impaled and part of our brain was expanded. And yeah, that's how that was done. So there is scientific
say bye-bye to John. He no longer exists.
No, not the ducks.
Yeah, no more ducks. Ducks don't exist anymore.
But yeah, so there is a scientific research backup to what we are saying. That's going to be part of the attention grabber. Oh yeah, sorry, let me say that again. So there is a scientific backup for what we are saying about our vocal cords being impaled and the brain expanding. If you would like to read more on that, I do have an entire article linked down below.
We should make a fake article. Like I could email it to you. Like I should write an article and then email it to you.
Oh my gosh, do it.
Oh my gosh.
We have to do it.
Google Docs or something.
Yes, we have to do it.
We should make little diagrams too.
I need to do it.
You know how they'll have a person and a diagram or something, and it's a generic white guy. It should be Tom Holland, injecting it.
We need to do it. Just take the part of the movie where it's the part where he injects it. Just
I can find that, but I will draw Tom Holland injecting a generic white man.
Oh, we need to do it. Okay, yep. This is a messy first episode. I feel like we're gonna end up on some drama.
Oh my gosh. Okay. You want to try the outro one more time? Or
yeah, let me try the outro. Okay. Thank you for watching this DIDiots podcast. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or concerns about the curing of DID, I would advise emailing Tom Holland yourself.
That's good. That's good. Do that again.
Okay, sorry. Advertisement. We gotta get through this. Take 2. Thank you for listening to this DIDiots podcast. If you are interested in any more research or questions, have any questions or anything, you can totally go to the link down below, or you can put them in the comment section of how DID is cured. I would recommend messaging Tom Holland yourself. I think that is the best way that you will get this information, but we can try to supply as much information from our personal experience of being cured by Tom Holland of our DID.
That was good. That's perfect, Matteo. But I can't take it seriously. If you want to discuss logistics, you could just stop the recording and then we could keep talking.
Logistics? Okay, what's the logistics?
What do you mean the logistics?
You said discuss the logistics.
Well, if you want to talk about planning stuff and you want to keep talking with audio.
Oh.
Yeah. You can stop the recording and we can just talk about stuff that our viewers don't need to know,
Okay, then I'm gonna do the outro one more time.
People.
Okay, let me do the outro one more time.
One more time? Okay.
Yep, take 3. Thank you for listening to this DIDiots podcast, where we talked about how Tom Holland cured our DID. Okay. If you have any more questions or concerns, you can totally go to the link down below. I would highly recommend that, or you can leave a comment. We will try to get back and try to answer as many questions as we can, but I would recommend messaging Tom Holland yourself. That is the best way, I do believe. However, from our experience of how we got cured of our DID by Tom Holland, we will absolutely try to help you. So yeah, have an amazing and very safe day, and thank you for listening to this podcast.
Disclaimer, okay. Don't actually talk to Tom Holland. We will get sued.
No, we can't get sued. This is copyrighted.
Okay, that's good.